Okay, so have you been thinking about capitalism lately?
Yeah, definitely. Like, it's kind of hard not to these days.
Right. Like everywhere you turn, it's like, is it working? Is it broken? What's next?
Yeah, exactly. Like, will it even be around in like 10 years? All
Yeah.
these huge questions.
Totally. And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We've got a whole bunch of your sources right here, and we're going to really unpack them.
Looking at all sides of it, the good, the bad, the ugly.
Exactly. And maybe even some alternatives, Like what else is out there?
Yeah, could there be a totally different way to do this whole economics thing?
That is the million-dollar question, or maybe the trillion-dollar question with inflation these days. But first, let's talk about the elephant in the room, or maybe the system in the room. Is capitalism actually dead?
Oh, that's a spicy one to start with. And your sources actually call this the great debate, so clearly there's no easy answer.
No kidding. But to even have this conversation, we got to at least acknowledge what capitalism has done right.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's given us so much innovation, right? Like, think about technology, medicine, even just the sheer amount of stuff we have access to.
So true. And it's pulled millions of people out of poverty.
Yeah, no doubt it's had massive successes.
Yeah.
But your sources also bring up some major red flags. Like, one report straight up says the richest 1% now own more than the bottom 90% combined.
That's wild. Like, seriously, think about that for a second. It's mind-blowing. And that kind of inequality, it just doesn't feel sustainable, does it?
Right. Like, how long can that even go on? And it's not just wealth. You
Oh,
know,
hi, tell me about it.
the environmental cost of all this growth, it's huge. Like one study you sent, it found that over 70% of all the greenhouse gases come from just 100 companies.
Wow. That's a pretty stark reminder that something needs to change.
Yeah, for sure. So, okay, we're seeing these problems, but what's the alternative? What else is out there?
Well, your sources throw around some interesting terms like socialism, cooperatives.
Even degrowth,
Right.
which I gotta admit sounds kind of sci-fi to me.
Right, like what even is degrowth? But seriously, are these actually viable options? Could any of them really replace capitalism?
Well, each one approaches things differently. Like socialism, it's all about sharing resources, more equal distribution of wealth.
Okay, I'm following.
And then cooperatives, they're focused on worker ownership, so everyone has a say in how things are run.
Interesting. So less top-down control.
Exactly. And degrowth, well, it basically challenges the whole idea that we need constant economic growth.
Which honestly kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Right. It's like a totally different way of thinking about things. But here's the thing. These aren't just ideas in a textbook.
No, really.
Yeah, there are places all over the world actually trying these models out, like real communities, even entire countries.
So it's not just theoretical, it's actually happening.
Exactly.
But some of the sources were pretty skeptical. Like one article argued that cooperatives just can't handle global scale problems. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's a fair point. Scaling up any system is tough, and each one has its own set of challenges for sure.
So maybe it's not about completely ditching capitalism, but like finding ways to make it more fair.
Yeah, like more sustainable
Oh,
too.
absolutely. And some of your sources actually talk about a hybrid model, blending different ideas.
Ooh, that's interesting, like a mix and match approach.
Yeah, exactly. So what would that even look like in real life?
Well, we could see a lot more businesses that care about more than just profit. Like social enterprises where social and environmental impact are just as important as the bottom line.
Right. So not just chasing money, but actually making a difference.
Exactly. Or we might see a surge in worker cooperatives,
Yeah.
giving employees more ownership and control.
Now that's a system I could get behind. But wouldn't all of this still just kind of prop up the same broken system? Like some sources argued we need a bigger shift in values to actually fix things.
Yeah, they make a good point. Any change has to address the root causes of inequality and how resources are distributed. And that's a deep question, isn't it? What do we actually value as a society?
Right. Like, is it just about endless growth and profits, or is there something more?
That's the big debate. And honestly, there's no easy answer.
Well, it's definitely clear that talk of capitalism's death might be a little premature.
Maybe just a little. But this whole conversation, it shows that we're at a crossroads.
Yeah, big time. And it's up to all of us to decide what direction we want to go in.
Exactly. So the real question isn't whether capitalism lives or dies, but how it changes, how it adapts to the challenges we're facing right now in the 21st century.
So true. And that brings us to you, dear listener.
What role do you want to play in shaping the future? Because it is being shaped whether we participate or not. What do you think needs to change?
What kind of world do you want to see?
Think about it, talk about it, and most importantly, do something about it.
And that's our deep dive for today. Thanks for listening.
And keep questioning.
Keep